I am Femi Okay.
And I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream. Today, is Zambia's democracy in danger?
The trial of the country's main opposition leader has led to accusations that the government is turning into a dictatorship.
My name is Modani, the drama queen, singer, rapper, drama, all-around boss lady, and I am in the stream.
Zambian opposition leader and frequent presidential candidate Hakainde Hichilema has been charged with treason after an extraordinary confrontation in April with President Edgar Lungu's motorcade. Now, police officials say that Lungu was endangered when Hichilema's convoy obstructed the road.
Hichilema has remained in custody since the incident, with his trial postponed until June. Although the government maintains the trial isn't political, critics say both free speech and democratic institutions have been compromised.
So what does this trial tell us about what's happening in Zambia today? Here with us to discuss this, we have Brian Mwinga. He is the press secretary for Hakainde Hichilema, and he was there during the incident that you just saw on the motorway. On the phone, we have Amos Chanda, the special assistant to President Lungu. Bernadette Decker, she is the Executive Director of the Policy Monitoring Research Centre. That's a government-funded think tank. And also on the phone, Laura Mitty is the Executive Director of the Alliance for Community Action. That's a civic engagement organisation. It's good to have you guests all joining us from Lusaka. I'm going to start with a video, Brian, that you took. I'm going to show the video, and I want you to talk us through, give us some commentary, what you saw and what you videoed. Let's have a look. So I see a string of cars, Brian, and you pick up. What are you seeing? What happened?
Yeah, this police motorcade came from a distance. And then if you've noticed, if you look at this road, there were no police that were guiding that there shouldn't be any other motorcade on this road. Now look at this closely, this other car that is trying to actually bash or bump Hakainde Hichilema's vehicle off the road.
So Brian, so the actual motorcade is the opposition motorcade. So this is HH, who you are press secretary for, and then the police cars are from the presidential motorcade wanting to get past you.
Exactly. And so when you look at this, you'll discover that actually Hakainde Hichilema's motorcade or convoy was already on the road. And the president's convoy came later on. And one thing that should, when we look at this video, you actually realize that on this road, there were no police on the road to actually tell the people to stay away from the road because the president was going to use this road.
This looks like chaos. Brian, this looks like chaos, but Amos, it looks chaotic. But I'm wondering, is this incident, is this treason? Can you explain to me how this turns into treason?
How do you describe
How
do you describe the chaotic scene around the president? If the presidential security is put in a chaotic situation, how do you describe that? A clear and imminent danger has been posed to the life of the president. The police. But also, Amos must tell the world why the police didn't be on this road to clear the road before the president got on this road. And why did the police allow Hakainde Hichilema and the convoy to be on the road if they knew that the president was going to be on this road? And I think this is what Amos should be explaining. Before I became press secretary in State House, I was an ordinary editor. There was no policeman at my house. I didn't see a thief coming to attack me just because there was no police officer home. So if there were no police officers on that road, that was not a reason for anyone, whether it was Hakainde Hichilema or any other person, to try and. But
the question Amos should answer is, why did the police allow Hichilema to be on this road if they knew that the president was going to use this road? Or was this a political gimmick?
Obey the standard rules and regulation when the police siren is coming and they are trying to get you off the road? As you can see there, 3 times they refused to get off the road. Why did he do that?
Amos.
Gentlemen, this is what I'm hearing. It's already been done, Brian and Amos. It's already been. This incident has already happened. I'm just curious as to why it's treason. It's too late to ask why didn't the police do this? Why didn't the motorcade do that? I'm just curious as to why is it treason.
But I can speculate. I do not know why the police charged them with treason. But I can speculate that whenever the life of the president is endangered,
you are within the realm of treason. I do not know whether it's treason myself because the judge is about to pronounce upon that case. But whenever you endanger the life of the president, which is why I said within moments of that unnecessary incident, I said those around President Hichilema and whoever advised him to behave in that was spectacularly foolish. Because what you get out of that is either a gunshot.
Now you see the language that Amos is using. You see the language that Amos is using, such words such as foolish. These are basically dictatorial tendencies aimed at instilling fear in people. There's no way.
So Brian, I'm going to jump in here because I want to bring the view of someone who's watching our conversation as is happening. This is Mumu Banga, who says treason is quite harsh, but the law was taking its course. Arguable. The motorcade incident could have turned ugly. Hichilema was daring and he pushed things a little too far. So that's one person's take of that traffic incident that we saw just a few moments ago. But here's another person's take, and this person might be bringing a little context to it. Anne-Marie says this was about a personal vendetta against Hichilema. The government hates his guts. Laura, can you elaborate for us why the government might have a vendetta, as this person says, against this opposition leader?
Well, I think the government would have a vendetta for the simple reason that this is really, just like you heard Amos and Brian, what the rest of us citizens are living with in Zambia is watching two elephants fight over power, essentially. So what happened in April was simply that President Lungu, whose ego has been hurt by Mr. Hichilema's failure to declare that he recognizes his power, he got an opportunity to punish him, as it were. So the idea of a vendetta, I mean, you can't argue about that. There's really bad blood between the two of them. And then you have a situation in which one of them has state power. So the one that has state power is using it against the one that does not.
Amos, that's a big charge there.
And just to add on what Rola has said.
Yeah. Sure,
just to add on what Rola has said.
Yeah, you go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add on what Rola has said. You said this is personal vendetta against Hakainde Hichilema, because during the campaigns in 2016, President Lungu, and this is in public domain, did mention at a public rally that if Hichilema was not going to accept or concede defeat in the elections, he was going to be fixed. And today Hichilema is in prison. So basically it's personal vendetta. It is what President Lungu has been planning to do all along. So I just want to agree with Laura that this is personal vendetta.
Bernadette, I'm thinking
because
here.
President Lungu,
Brian, I hear you. Bernadette, I'm thinking here, what does this road incident, it was chaos, regardless of where you were in that motorcade. It was chaotic, but now it's turned into a treason trial. What does that say about where Zambia is politically right now, Bernadette?
I think I'm going to say that it is very important to understand that governance are normative accounts of how public institutions are to conduct public affairs in the first place. So having said that, the question is government or the presidency interfering in all this? Where is Zambia going is the cardinal question. But then the answer at the same time, we should be reflective of the very fact that institutions such as the police, institutions such as, or entities such as the judiciary in Zambia must operate autonomously without any interference whatsoever, especially that there's a charge by the police already here.
Are you seeing any signs of that, Bernadette? Bernadette, are you seeing any signs of interference, of government interference?
And from an organization that I'm coming from and representing, we look at governance in general as a thematic area. And we have been following closely what has been transpiring. And I started deliberately by talking about the autonomy of institutions such as the judiciary, the police, and the independence of the police as well. So looking at the sphere right now and the topic at hand,
Zambians are going to be watching this, Bernadette. Zambians are going to be watching this and saying, well, what about the press? What about the newspapers? What about the violence? They're going to be watching that, and you're talking autonomy. Bernadette, are you still with us? I silenced Bernadette. She's frozen. With my wisdom. Malika.
People are also talking about the connections to Zambia, but to the point that you raised earlier, you were asking Bernadette, she was talking about autonomy, and you're saying people online are going to be talking about the press and about freedom of expression. That's exactly what they're talking about. Some people are even referencing their fears about people who are tweeting into today's show and whether or not the government might go after them afterwards. So take a look at some of these tweets that people have been sending in to us. We can't talk. The government is watching us. Someone else says, we might be arrested without trial for tweeting in. Another person says they fear treason just for talking to us and sharing their thoughts on this. And this last person you see on the screen there, that's Kathy. She says, the fact that people don't feel comfortable talking about this should tell you something about the sanctity of the rule of law. Amos, if people disagree with the government, disagree with the president, do they have the space to express that freely? Why do we have so many tweets from people saying they're afraid to speak their mind?
There is no single journalist in any Zambian prison. There is no one before any Zambian prison for expressing their view. Some of them even for insolently insulting the president. There is no one on trial for doing that. That is deliberate mischief by those who seek to paint the image of the government as such. Today's, in fact, the past 2 weeks, from his prison cell, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema has called the government a brutal dictatorship. His member of parliament from Mazabuka has described the president and the leaders of government in a manner that I can't repeat on live television. There is no policeman at his house. If you read the Zambian newspapers, in fact, the Zimbabwean journalist was telling me that what is the measure of freedom? What freedom do Zambian journalists look for more than this? Unless the definition of freedom is insults and whatnot, but I can tell you the democratic space available for not just journalists, of any citizen is unparalleled. I don't think that there is any comparison within Africa in terms of how much democratic space there is there. You can find 2 or 3 people who can tweet falsehoods. That does not define.
I just want to. I just want to disagree with Amos when he says there's media freedom in the country, there's freedom of expression in the country, there's freedom of association in the country, there's freedom of speech in the country. It is not too long ago, if not 2 days or a day ago, that Amos and the Zambia Correctional Service or the prisons, they've issued remarks telling Hichilema, who is not yet convicted, that he should stop talking to the media. So where's press freedom? Where's freedom of expression?
That's exactly
where's freedom of association?
You cannot go on global media
just hold on, Amos.
Brian, it's a back and forth. So let me hear Amos, because also he doesn't have the advantage of being able to see you.
He's consciously misled in court. You actually feel pity for the man. You have around him advisors who can lie on global media. I have not issued any statement on Hakainde.
So, gentlemen, remembering that we have viewers watching from around the world, Laura, I just want to tap into this sense of reluctance that many of our online community have felt about sharing their views about what's happening politically in Zambia. Do you feel any reticence at all as a commentator, a social commentator, about what you can say and when you can say it?
I don't feel any anxiety, and I think the only reason why I don't feel any anxiety is because I am me, not because it is safe. I understand why most people are scared, and I must say also that I've commented on various governments for many years, and if I ever felt unsafe, I think this would be the time I feel most unsafe. So it's a sense of the tension in the country makes people feel extremely unsafe. And then when you listen to when you listen to Amos talk about autonomy and talk about unparalleled freedom, I mean, it's the kind of thing that he will say today. And I can assure you that tomorrow when he's out of the job, like all these people do, all the PF people, which is the Patriotic Front, the ruling party, and then before that you had the MMD, which was the ruling party. They say one thing today and the exact opposite tomorrow. So, for example, the former Minister of Information, whose job it was to make journalists' lives miserable and citizens and call citizens names. Right now, he is all talking about freedom and how he feels as if he's being harassed by operatives of the state. So it's exactly that. The problem we have, I think, in Zambia is that we have this overwhelming presidency. So whoever is around the president, their job is to make the president feel good. And I think that Mr. Hichilema's biggest problem is that he's preventing the sitting president from enjoying power, essentially, you see, by not acknowledging that he is president. But really, there is no law that says anybody should acknowledge the sitting president. There's nothing that President Lungu cannot do because Mr. Hichilema has said he is not president. So essentially, what you're having now is a situation in which you have a government whose efforts to address the service delivery issues for which they were elected, none of us can really see what they're doing. I can't say that government is not working. What I can say is that all their efforts are being overshadowed by this sense of wanting to hold on to power. So all we hear is 2021, President Lungu is going to stand again in 2021.
Let me just remind our international audience that there was an election last year. Bernadette, continue.
I think, let me say something about that. Let me really say something about that. I think we are talking about Zambia. We are all Zambians, and I think there is a sense of patriotism within ourselves. I think that's a falsehood to actually bring out to the world that the government is overwhelmed by an opposition leader who actually lost an election. I think us as Policy Monitoring and Research Center have been following up policies. The government's efforts are concerted and concentrated on pushing the national agenda for the next 5 years, which is the 7th National Development Plan. We see the president, we see government institutions, and including the stakeholders.
Laura, hold tight for a moment, just so I can hear Bernadette clearly. Hold tight for a moment, Laura.
I talked about the autonomy of institutions. So is government or the president's police, is government or the presidency auditor general, is government or the presidency, for example, anti-corruption commission or these other entities, including the judiciary. That's where we need to separate powers. So
I hear what you're saying, Bernadette. I hear what you're saying, and you began what you said by saying you were all Zambians here. So I just want to give our audience online a little taste of what this conversation is looking like. We are having about 30 tweets per minute from Zambians. They're mostly sticking to the top part of our conversation, which was about that traffic incident that caused this conversation we're having today. This is Talvin, though. She shifts the conversation a little bit. She says there is lack of tolerance for those with dissenting views, and as a result, democratic principles are being defiled severely with impunity. So this is looking at Zambia as a democracy. Someone else pushes back against that, though. This is Tekler, who says the arrest of Hichilema cannot descend Zambia into dictatorship or an abyss, as he's not above the law. Supporting this argument would negate the strides that Zambia has made to become a state governed by the sanctity of the rule of law. Brian, we know that Zambia has had 2 democratic transfers of power, relatively peaceful. Do you agree with this argument that Tekler says that Zambia has made strides in this?
Well, on the other hand, yes, I would say Zambia has made strides. But as at the moment, these strides are being taken aback. And really, especially under this regime, under the Patriotic Front of President Lungu, these strides have drastically dwindled. Because if there was any sort of strides towards proper transition of power, proper elections, I do not think that today the whole world would be listening and watching what is going on in the country. Now, because of what is happening in the country, what is being done to the opposition, private citizens, the media, and even people from outside Zambia, tells a story that even the transitional strides that were there long before, even the democratic tenets that were long before, they have drastically dwindled under President Lungu.
Brian,
and this is why today...
I'm having a thought here, because we interviewed at Al Jazeera, we interviewed your boss, Hichilema, last September, and we asked him about the results of the election, and this is what he told Al Jazeera. Have a look at this piece of tape.
So this inauguration is illegal, is unconstitutional. He never won the election. We believe we won the election, but our petition was never heard. So there's a crisis, a constitutional crisis.
Amos, I'm just wondering, is this what this tension is about right now in Zambia? It's about this dissension about the election results. Amos?
Yeah. Yes, there are two things about a constitutional democracy. It allows a lot of space for politicking, but still a constitutional democracy is premised on the existence of law and order. It's premised on the existence of the rule of law. If you politic, Zambia, you can politic from morning to evening. But when you cross the line of politicking and it enters the realm of criminality, the democracy that we gave to ourselves is not a license or immunity to committing a crime. Let me say that because I want to comment on what Rora Miti said, that it's because of recognition. There's no law in this country that compels you to recognize the president. If you want, you can declare yourself president. If the police are not watching, good luck to you. As long as that does not lead to incitement, no one will come for you. The Electoral Commission of Zambia chairman declares the winner. The Chief Justice swears in. When those two incidents have happened, it doesn't matter whether Mr. Hichilema recognizes this and that. If you go on the road and move an object that obstructs a presidential motorcade when it is at 140 kilometers, if that is what is meant not to recognize the president, you have committed an offense. If your behavior to do that is as a result of your lack of recognition for that president, you have been punished for a crime, not for...
Amos, I was just wondering, I wanted to ask what President Lungu makes of all of this.
He has allowed the judiciary to take charge of this process. He's a lawyer himself. He believes in the rule of law. He's not bothered. He's relaxed. He's governing. As I said, the judiciary is functioning. The legislature is functioning. All democratic institutions are functional. People go to work at 8 hours. They go for lunch at 12. They knock off. It's functional. This also, I mean, I was speaking to Al Jazeera here.
Everything's functional, everything's working, and President Lungu is relaxed. Guests, hold tight for a moment. I'm taking you all to the post show. You hear that volume. That is why we have to continue our conversation in just a moment. But Malika first.
The volume's here too. Alex says Hichilema lost by very few votes, and the president knows that he enjoys a lot of support. On the other hand, Gabriel says there's no oppression in Zambia, and his followers know this. Stop being crybabies. Get back to campaigning.
To be continued online, stream.aljazeera.com. Malika and I will see you there, as too will I guess. Thanks for watching. Hello again, everybody. I'm really glad you found our stream post show. We're talking about Zambia. We're talking about an incident on the road that turned into a treason trial of an opposition leader in Zambia. So much more to talk about, though, from that one road incident. Malika.
Because from that road incident to a discussion on whether or not Zambia's democratic institution is firmly in place. So this is Jeff on Twitter. He says Zambia's democratic backsliding has long been evident and was on full display in the lead up to the 2016 elections, which some would argue is really the cause of all of this. He sent us a video comment, and Jeffrey is the executive director of Vanguard Africa, and that's an NGO that advocates for free and fair elections on the continent. This is what Jeffrey had to say.
Zambia is a country we have been particularly concerned with, and I've tried to shed a necessary spotlight on over the course of the past year, particularly in the lead up to last August's election, in which a number of irregularities were raised, the opposition not being allowed to campaign freely, the shutting down of independent media outlets, the intimidation and harassment of journalists. And our contention at the time was that before Zambia goes off the rails, the SADC, Southern African Development Community, and the African Union should get actively involved and engaged then, as opposed to now, where we're seeing a lot of this repression and heavy-handed tactics really come to fruition.
So Bernadette, what do you make of that? This is a slippery slope away from democracy.
Right. First of all, I think it is also important to understand that Zambia is a member of the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, a regional entity tied to the African Union, tied to SADC, tied also and supported by the United Nations. And Zambia every year is reviewed by this entity. So, and on the governance mark, politically and democratically, as well as economically, Zambia has been marked as going into the right direction. So for my colleague from that entity, I don't know, perhaps we need to furnish him with new demographics and as well as data. We're not say, as PMRC, we're not saying that everything is all rosy. We could do better, but in terms of governance, the environment is sane, and Zambia is moving into towards an economic governance as well.
What could the government be doing better? Bernadette, what could the government be doing better?
Excuse me?
What could the government be doing better?
Right. We're saying that it could do better. We have seen that there are a lot of efforts that are being made. For example, I keep talking about the 7th National Development Plan that is about to be launched, and we're talking about economic diversification. Obviously, I'm going to dwell on economic governance. And if I'm going to talk about economic governance, I have to make sure that the country is enjoying peace and stability to ensure that there's investor confidence, because if our farmers are doing well and for them to have exports, definitely we'll need international trade, good international trade environment.
All right,
and,
Bernadette, thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to share something with you.
As well.
Thanks, Bernadette. I just want to share something with you from John Tembo. And he tweets, I think that this whole treason trial will bolster the opposition. It's a great miscalculation on the part of the current government. Brian, are you finding that you're rejuvenated, that you feel that you have more energy now in opposition than ever before because Hichilema is in prison?
Well, just to state that Hakainde Hichilema has always been confident about how he can govern this country, and really him being in jail and being put in prison by President Lungu and his team does not really stop his spirit that is fighting for the freedoms of several Zambians who today can barely talk, can barely express themselves about wrong things happening, can basically freely even walk to the public media and express themselves about wrong things that are being done by President Lungu and his regime. Hichilema's view has always been that Zambia and its democracy must be upheld.
Brian, I hear you, but in terms of opposition, is that bolstering your position, or are you feeling weakened?
Well,
it shouldn't be a binary. Brian, it's a brief answer. It's not a party political broadcast. It's a very brief answer.
Exactly. Hichilema's arrest really boosts the party and boosts his strength that he will definitely get Zambia out of this dictatorship.
Laura, I'd like to hear it from your perspective as a social commentator. You see what happening, this pursuing an opposition leader for what seems to be a traffic incident, and then charging him with treason. What's that done for opposition parties in Zambia?
But I think that what President Lungu has done is put wind into sails that were really flagging. If the PF and President Lungu in particular had totally ignored Mr. Hichilema's statements that he did not he did not think of him as president and he did not believe he had won, I think that the UPND are going to find it very difficult in the next 5 years because Zambians just get on with life as a rule. So what I think is that what President Lungu has done is indeed bolstered the fortunes of UPND as well as President Hakainde Hichilema. And I think what is most tragic about this is that what you see is really contestation for power. It's got very little to do with the people of Zambia. You see, every time President Lungu stands at a mic, he says, I won, and think, okay, you won. Can you get on and run the country? And on the other side as well, it feels really about power, both on the opposition and the ruling party. And down there, people are living in squalor. You know, the economy of the country is going backwards, but even what we can do, we don't do well. We have children who are out of school, you have whole areas without toilets, but the people who should be governing the country are just worried about holding on to that power for their own good. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. And that is what is most annoying about this, particularly on the part of the president. You wish you'd just get on and run this country for once. Since 2015, it's been electioneering.
Laura, I hear you there. I hear what you're saying. I want to share some perspectives from online. I'm just going to read out a few tweets rapid fire because the amount of tweets that we're getting in on this, even in the post show, is pretty incredible. Definitely record breaking for the stream in quite a while. This is Gabriel, and these tweets I'm going to read out really to show you the breadth of perspectives on this issue. Gabriel says, in Zambia, we pave the way for emergency vehicles and even for a funeral procession. Endangering our president's life is treason globally. Someone else on the other side of the perspective says, any story that's anti-government doesn't make it onto our national broadcaster. Don't tell me that these aren't dictatorial tendencies. And I'm going to leave off with this one from Lungo, who says, there's just too much hypocrisy from both parties on this. They can easily solve this whole thing without so much as a fuss. So Amos, of course, I'm going to direct that one to you. Where do you see this going from here? And do you think this is easily solvable? Will the treason charges be dropped?
That's entirely, and when we talk about Zambia being a constitutional democracy with clear separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive and parliament, it's precisely that. If the police have trumped up these charges and the free and fair trial has been accorded to Mr. Hichilema, which I think he has been, the judges will acquit him. You cannot force a president to intervene in a matter and stop the judges and then you call him a dictator. Mr. Hichilema got an absolute discharge on some charges only a week ago. Is that how a dictatorship functions? Because in a dictatorship, you tell judges what to say, what not to say.
This just tells that there's no case
appeal from the government.
There was no case. This is why he was acquitted. It shows there was no case. That's why he was acquitted. So, yeah, it shows that there was no case. That's why he was acquitted. No, not really. It shows that there is no case against Hakainde Hichilema. How do you describe a situation where... My question to you, Amos, is... My question to you, Amos, is this.
Your logic, which you cancel.
My question, Amos, to you is this. How do you describe a situation where the arresting officer of Hichilema on all the three charges told lies in court? And he was made to apologize in court. And this is a person who today is walking freely. And Hichilema, who he arrested without even investigating before he could arrest him, is in prison.
Brian and Amos, as you can hear from two very different political parties, I thank you for bringing your two perspectives to this conversation. It was invaluable. Laura and Bernadette, thank you for being part of this conversation. Zambia, thank you for watching and for watching us online and also on TV as well. Our conversation continues. We don't have to stop it right now, only right now on the internet, this particular part of the show, but hashtag AJ Stream, and that is our platform for debating. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of today's stream. Appreciate it.